It was 4 a.m. on February 14th, 2000, the last time anyone reportedly saw 9-year-old Asha Degree alive. The tiny child was seen walking on the edge of a rural highway as a storm raged overhead. For 20 years, there were no leads about what happened to Asha or why she was walking down a desolate highway during a storm in the first place. As of this month, that has changed. For the very first time, suspects' names have arisen in the case of Asha Degree, and law enforcement has officially labeled her death a homicide. But who are these suspects, and how do they tie into this young girl's unexplainable disappearance on that cold February night? Today, we will discuss the case of Asha Degree and take a detailed look at the newest developments. Asha Degree was at the very beginning of what should have been a long, beautiful life. At 9 years old, her radiant presence made her a beloved fixture in her 4th grade classroom and her basketball team at Falston Elementary School. She was known for being kind and shy, but enthusiastic about what she loved. Her family was religious and avoided outside influences they felt could corrupt their kids' morals. There was no computer in their home, and the shows the children watched were monitored. As a result, Asha wasn't one to approach strangers. She was a bit of a mummy and daddy's girl, sticking to them like glue whenever they were by her side. That's precisely why her actions in the early morning hours of February 14th still bewilder her family to this day. Asha went to bed in the bedroom she shared with her 10-year-old brother O'Brien at around 8 p.m. on the 13th. Around 9, a car accident knocked out the power, which didn't flicker back to life until around midnight. Asha's father, Harold, popped his head into his kids' bedroom to check on them before he went to bed at about 2:30 a.m. In the dim light, he saw his children curled up in their beds, fast asleep. Asha was tucked away in her floral blankets, wearing a white nightgown with a fuzzy teddy bear on the front. She was a picture of innocence. Asha sleeping peacefully in her bed is the last time Harold ever saw his daughter. Sometime between 2 and 3 a.m., O'Brien heard a squeak from Asha's bed. At the time, he assumed she was having trouble sleeping because of the storm raging outside. In reality, that squeak was the sound of Asha slipping out of her bed. She grabbed a backpack law enforcement believes she had spent days preparing and snuck out into the winter night. To this day, no one knows what Asha was preparing for or why a young girl who was terrified of the dark would head out onto a pitch-black highway in the middle of a storm. For reference, Sarah Almond, going by the YouTube name What Would She Do? The Show, posted this video walking the same route Asha would have been taking at the same time of night.
I just wanted to try to show what it looks like out here for a little 9-year-old girl to take this walk at this time of night.
According to Asha's family, friends, and teachers, she was a strict rule follower who was wary of strangers and terrified of the nighttime. What could have possibly driven her to walk along this terrifying stretch of road? Sometime between 3 and 4 a.m., a truck driver named Jeff Rupp saw a young girl dressed in all white walking along Highway 18. He turned to see if his eyes were deceiving him, but they weren't. When he confirmed that it really was a child walking through the darkness in the dead of night, he made yet another turn, this time to see if she needed help. As he approached her, however, the girl, matching Asha's description, ran off and disappeared into trees at the edge of the road. With work to do, the man continued driving, but he couldn't shake the strangeness of what he had seen. The man saw this girl, widely believed to be Asha, about a mile from her home, or about a 20-minute walk. She was spotted outside the Turner residence and was seen running toward a shed on their property. Keep this in mind, because there are some disputes about the shed that we'll have to go into later. Another driver, Roy Blarton Jr., also reported seeing Asha around this time. Without getting a close look, he assumed it was a woman who was leaving a domestic argument of some kind. His description, however, matched the description that Rupp gave exactly, leading police to believe that it was Asha who was on the highway that fateful night. At 5:45 a.m., Asha's mother, Equilla, woke up to get her kids ready for school. When she opened the bedroom door, Asha was nowhere to be seen. In a panic, she and Harold began to search the house, their cars, and the neighbors for their daughter. After not finding her inside the home or at nearby relatives' residences, Aquila called law enforcement. At 6:40, officers arrived and began searching the neighborhood. Members of Asha's church and several of her neighbors took the day off of work.
It was cold, foggy, raining a little bit that day. And like I told Harold, it's going to get better. We're going to find her before dark fall, but we didn't. And I don't understand why we couldn't find her.
The following day, February 15th, law enforcement began investigating the tips provided by the two truckers who claimed to have seen Asha walking through the storm. Following where Asha was last seen, investigators began to search the Turner property. On that property, in a shed, officers discovered several items that Asha's mother claimed belonged to Asha. These items included a yellow hair bow, candy wrappers matching candy that Asha had gotten with her basketball team, and a green marker. In addition, there was this photo. To this day, the girl in the picture has never been publicly identified. There are claims that the FBI has determined that the photo is not linked to the case, and as such, no information has been released. That being said, there's been no statement from local or federal law enforcement regarding this photo. Though Aquila claims the items in the shed belong to Asha, the FBI has also never agreed that they are. The shed they were discovered in was used for storage for several years, so it's not unlikely that the generic items found their way into it prior to Asha's disappearance. On the 16th, Aquila, desperate to find her baby girl, discovered that Asha had taken several items with her the night she disappeared, including some of her favorite clothing items, her basketball uniform, and a pair of jeans with a red stripe up the side. Within a week of her disappearance, 9,000 man-hours had been invested into the massive search for Asha. Sadly, aside from the sightings of her along the side of the highway, law enforcement had absolutely no leads. In the months that followed, Asha's parents were repeatedly blamed for their daughter's disappearance. However, they remained steadfast, cooperating with law enforcement and even going on national talk shows to get as many people as possible looking for their daughter.
We still have hope. We don't think she's dead, but we still need help.
Just keep praying for me and my family and that she will return home.
For over a year, there was not a single lead about what happened to Asha. Then, on August 3, 2001, Ashas Backpack was discovered. About 26 miles north of Asha's last known location, a construction project had begun near Morganton on the edge of Highway 18. It's a sparsely populated, densely forested area. There, a construction worker discovered a backpack wrapped in 2 trash bags. Confused, he looked inside and found Asha's name written in Sharpie inside the backpack. It was a devastating discovery. Police have yet to reveal everything inside the bag, but in 2020, they disclosed that it contained a copy of McElligott's Pool, a book by Dr. Seuss that had Asha's elementary school stamp on the cover. However, Asha had never checked out the book, and there was no record of who did. In addition, the backpack contained this New Kids on the Block t-shirt. Asha didn't own this t-shirt before her disappearance, and it's worth noting that the shirt is for a band that wasn't popular in Asha's age group in 2000. The bag's double wrapping gave some indication that whoever disposed of it didn't want it destroyed, but still needed it to be concealed. It's safe to assume that law enforcement didn't expect to find Asha alive after discovering her abandoned backpack. At the same time, they could never have expected just how helpful the discovery of that backpack would someday be. The FBI took several DNA samples from within the bag. At the time of the discovery, DNA wasn't advanced enough to help them. But by 2024, DNA has come a long way. So far, in fact, that the DNA found in Asha's backpack finally led the FBI and law enforcement descending on a farm in Shelby just miles from Asha's home.
For days, the FBI, SBI, and the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office swarmed multiple properties that are all connected on multiple acres.
These are the full warrants for the properties that law enforcement meticulously searched for several days, and they provide the first peek into their pursuit to find Asha Degree. Back in 2001, items found in Asha's backpack were protected until they could be thoroughly tested. 2 DNA samples were eventually extracted, but they were not a match for anyone in CODIS. CODIS is the Combined DNA Index System, a catalog of the DNA of every criminal across all United States agencies. However, as genealogical data has become more widespread and understood because of companies like 23andMe and Ancestry DNA, the samples at law enforcement's fingertips have expanded. Using new genealogical DNA testing, law enforcement narrowed the DNA samples they found in Asha's backpack down to 2 individuals. Asha's undershirt was discovered inside the garbage bag with her backpack. On that undershirt was a single hair stem sample, and that sample belonged to a woman named Annalee Dedman. Another DNA sample belonged to Russell Bradley Underhill, known to also have gone by Rusty Hill. The most important thing that needs to be understood with these leads is that law enforcement knows much, much more than we do. For years, the public crucified Asha's family members, spreading rumors, sullying their reputation, and giving them a lifetime of grief to process. With the FBI's recent announcement that Asha's parents are not suspects, the public is faced with the realization that they condemned innocent, grieving parents for nearly 2 decades. As of now, neither Annalee Dedman nor Russell Bradley Underhill have been named suspects in Asha's disappearance. However, 2 people connected to them have been. You see, Annalee Dedman was just 13 years old when Asha disappeared. She's the daughter of Connie and Roy Lee Dedman, 2 prominent members of the Shelby community. Russell Bradley Underhill passed away in 2004 due to what is presumed to have been a heart condition. Russell spent the majority of his life in and out of care facilities, including ones that were owned by Connie and Roy Dedman. Through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, the Dedmans operated 2 nursing facilities, Cleveland Healthcare and Northbrook Rest Home. Little is known about why Russell, who was only in his 40s during the 90s, lived in a facility. However, his autopsy lists that he struggled with alcohol dependency, depression, and substance use, which may be why he opted to live in a facility rather than by himself. The DNA of Russell and Annalee being found on Asha's belongings created a massive stir online, with many people positively declaring that Annalee and her 2 siblings must have gone for a joyride and killed Asha. However, if you look closer at the warrant and realize the purpose of a search warrant, that assertion begins to crack. An investigating agency gives a judge a search warrant to prove that they have cause to investigate a property and seize someone's belongings. The purpose of a search warrant is not to lay out every detail of the case to the judge. It is simply for the judge to see clearly why they need to search the property and to approve of them doing so. The search warrant for the Dedmans' main property on Cherryville Road outlines that Roy and Connie Dedman are the only links between Annalee and Russell. You see, Connie was the administrator of Russell's medication in the facility where he lived in 2000, when Asha went missing. Roy not only worked at that same facility, but was also Russell's emergency contact. In an interview conducted with a social services worker, law enforcement learned that Roy would often send his oldest daughter to transport patients from the nursing facility to Broughton Hospital, a mental health treatment center in Morganton. And because of the age of Annalee, the warrant states this: due to the ages of Roy Dedman and Connie Dedman's 3 daughters, investigators believe adult assistance from Roy Dedman and Connie would have been necessary in the execution and/or concealment of the crime. This statement has caught a lot of attention and has been routinely misinterpreted. Again, the job of a search warrant is to claim probable cause to search a property, not to tell the judge exactly what happened. This statement isn't saying that Connie and Roy helped commit and conceal a daughter's crime. It's saying that for Annalee's DNA to be on Asha's belongings, her parents must be involved in some way because she was a minor. Further down, the document clearly states that Roy and Connie are both suspects. Nowhere else in the document does it identify anyone else as a suspect. These search warrants were approved by a judge, allowing the government to search several properties. These include 621 Cherryville Road in Shelby, the home where Roy, Connie, and the children lived at the time of Asha's disappearance; 601 Cherryville Road, a property owned by the Dedmans; a property on Hawthorne Lane in Shelby, where Connie lived at the time the warrant was issued, a property in Charlotte, North Carolina, where Anna Lee lived at the time the warrant was issued, and finally, Northbrook Rest Home in Vail, North Carolina, where Russell lived for a time under the operation of Connie and Roy. In addition to the properties, search warrants were issued to allow buccal swabs to be taken from Anna Lee, Roy, and Connie. In the warrant for Roy's DNA, it reads, "It is possible that Roy Lee Dedman's DNA could match DNA evidence related to this incident and/or could match DNA profiles derived from evidence collected and entered into CODIS that currently remain unidentified. Cause exists to obtain this DNA evidence from Roy." A buccal swab was taken from all three parties, but the items taken from the Cherryville property caused the most significant reaction. In 2016, law enforcement told the media that they had received a tip that Asha may have been seen getting pulled into a green 1970s model Lincoln Continental Mark IV, or a Ford Thunderbird from the same period. On the Dedmans' property in their 2024 search, they discovered a green 1964 AMC Rambler. Take a look and see how the car compares. Many believe this is the car that Asha may have been pulled into in 2000. The vehicle was taken for additional testing, and that wasn't all. From the Cherryville property, law enforcement took dozens of phones, laptops, computer towers, VHS tapes, cassette tapes, a shoe sole, pieces of red fabric, and a human tooth in a Ziploc bag. In addition, they took several pages of documents, a pair of Carhartt jeans, children's clothing, and lastly, a .22 caliber rifle. As a result of the search, Roy and Connie Dedman's attorney made a public statement to the media. You are about to see why it rubbed many people the wrong way.
Next week, I believe the search warrant that was executed at 621 Cherryville Road will be made public. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I think it's likely to happen. And when you read the affidavit, it may be more clear to you why there was a search at 621 Cherryville Road and some other locations. I think there will also be information in that search warrant that sadly will link a person to the circumstances of Asha's disappearance that is no longer living. And it's very possible, not saying that the person that was named in the search warrant had anything to do with her disappearance, because I don't know any more than you do, or any more than the Sheriff's Department or the FBI or the SBI does. But it's very possible that that person, who's no longer here, has the answer as to what happened to Asha. And the answer may very well never be known. And I'm here on behalf of a gentleman by the name of Roy Dedman, who hired me to assist him with some events that have occurred at his home at 621 Cherryville Road. Now, Roy came to see me after he had already spoken with law enforcement and while the search at his home was ongoing. And I have been informed by Roy that he was questioned about the Asha Degree disappearance. And he told law enforcement that he had no information about what happened to Asha. He wasn't withholding any information about what happened to Asha. And I am aware that just about every family member of Roy Dedman has been interviewed. And those individuals, his wife and his three daughters, have also said that they don't know what happened to Asha Degree and don't have any information about what happened to Asha Degree.
It became clear to the public that Roy and Connie's attorney was blaming Russell for Asha's disappearance and claiming that Russell was the reason the search was being conducted, not the Dedmans. Russell is gone, so he cannot speak for himself. With this being the first break in the Asha Degree case in over 20 years, rumors have spread like wildfire. It's essential to review the facts. As of now, only Roy and Connie have been named suspects, and that was out of a desire to search their property. There is no publicly known link between the Dedmans and Asha. At the time of Asha's disappearance, the Dedman children were several years older than Asha, and they didn't attend the same school. We will hopefully have answers within the next few months. At the core of this mystery and the excitement surrounding it is a little girl who never got to grow up, and a family who misses her terribly. If you have any information about the disappearance of Asha Degree, please contact Cleveland County Sheriff's Office at 704-484-4822 or the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI.